You're still watching World Insight with me, Tian Wei. The program is coming to you live on CGTN from St. Petersburg International Economic Forum. One of the consensus between China and Russia is the importance of maintaining a multilateral order in which all countries have a say. That idea was shared by two presidents at an earlier concluded plenary session of the forum. Not only this platform, but many other international forums also begin to focus its attention on that, such as the well-respected World Economic Forum, well known for organizing winter Davos in Switzerland every year. It even established an AI Council recently, with the aim of mediating the role among the countries who are increasingly viewing AI and other emerging technologies as geopolitical competitions. The council is tellingly chaired by an American and a Chinese, Brad Smith of Microsoft and Kai-Fu Lee, the prolific AI investor and advocate from China. Mark Brand, the president of the World Economic Forum, updated me about that on the sidelines of the forum here in St. Petersburg Economic Forum. We started our conversation with the possibility, at least a possibility, of a technological war. One of the things people talk about is technology. We see some talk about the potential of technological war. Others say decoupling as a result of technological development. What do you see the potential? I know you are participating in many panels regarding technologies and AI.
I think you're right that there is technology competition going on globally. I think partly what we're seeing now is not a cold war, but they called it hot peace. And technology, I think, is part of this. There is a technology rivalry between the US and China. I think China is now making huge progress in many of these areas, not only in artificial intelligence and machine learning, but also when it comes to, for example, speed trains, facial recognition. But look also in the environmental field. I saw the statistics the other day that there are 400,000 electric buses in China, and there are 300 in the US.
What does that say to you?
Still, of course, thinks that collaboration is the best way moving forward. Cooperation. I think the new technologies in many ways also can solve a lot of the challenges that we have in the health area, environmental area. Just imagine if we can develop new energy that is not then emitting CO2.
Yeah, maybe there's going to be divide as a result of one considering the other as competitors and even rivals and probably even enemies. Is there a danger that the world, technological-wise, will be divided into different groups as a result of different standards, as a result of different ways of using and improving technologies?
What we have seen during the 3 last decades is that the global GDP has doubled. We have seen billions of people lifted out of poverty. And the driving factor behind this has also been growth in global trade. And I just hope that we will see solutions between China and the US moving forward, but also that we will have increased collaboration. I think the jury is out where we are heading, but sometimes it has to be get worse before it gets better. Maybe we will see results down the road that are in the interest of all the countries involved.
Very interesting when you said that, Mr. President. It will get worse, maybe, before it gets better. What we are seeing are some of the players that are trying to do their proportion of what they believe is the correct or make up to the challenges that we have today. Some use the example of the cooperation between China and Russia. You certainly see the big state visit by Chinese President Xi Jinping and also appearing at the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum. But the question really is, will bilateral efforts like these be able to make up for a general trend that seems to be going, some say, quite pessimistically?
You know, the World Bank came out with their economic outlook 2 days ago, and they are also reducing the expected global growth for this year, and they quite clearly say that geopolitics, trade is having a negative impact now on the global growth expectations. So, of course, when there is less happening at the multilateral area, you can see increased regional activities, but also increased activities between countries. You can see bilateral trade arrangements happening. I think that is not, it's not negative with bilateral trade arrangements, but I think when you get multilateral agreements, there are rules that apply for everyone. And also for smaller and medium-sized economies, this gives certain predictability that is important. But you know, we are now waiting for the G20 meeting in Osaka, in Japan. We know that President Xi Jinping will meet with President Trump there. And I think there is a lot of interest also and expectations when it comes to that meeting.
I do want to use the example, since we're here in St. Petersburg, between China and Russia in a way. The two sides, when it comes to e-commerce, signed some deals recently as a result of the state visit about trying to enlarge the pie, as they say, to have the two markets in a way work interactingly. On the other hand, you also see Huawei getting a one-year contract with a major telecom company here to develop the 5G system in Russia. So, of course, knowing the latter was having such a difficult time developing American markets and probably some of the European markets. So, Mr. President, my question really is, it seems that the world is already being divided, at least for the moment.
Let's see how this now develops in the coming months. I think when there are negotiations going on, there are different negotiation techniques and tactics. But of course, if the largest economy in the world, the US, and the second largest economy in the world, China, will be in a situation where they launch new tariffs and escalate this, that will have a big impact not only for China and the US, but also for the rest of the world, especially when we live in a globalized world with global value chains. But what I hope is that we will not go into a situation where you will have totally different platforms. You know, you have one internet today, and I hope we will also have the same standards, the same traffic rules moving forward.
Is there a danger as well as a result of political fights, for example, in certain countries, that the talents from different parts of the world, particularly in certain countries, might have difficult access to another country or vice versa?
This year is the first year where Asia is more than 50% of the global GDP. That shows also how much stronger Asia is growing. I think this is causing, you know, some concerns in some countries. And it's not only an Asian century, but it is also the fact that for the first time, for decades, maybe ever, we have seen that the emerging economies are bigger than the traditional industrialized economies. So emerging economies are more than 50% of the global GDP. So this is, it's also a fascinating, very fast changing world. China's export, that is huge, but only 15% of the Chinese export goes to the US. So 85% of the Chinese export goes to other countries. But I think the crucial thing here, both for the US and China, as you also underlined, is the global value chain. So it is so much relying on each other and each other's production. I think this is the new element in this.
Do we have other experiences earlier that would help us to find a solution?
It's complicated, but if you go
I know,
back,
I know you're going to say that.
Yeah, but if you go back to the 1850, that long time ago, India and China were more than 40% of the global GDP. I think we're now seeing countries that are really emerging on the global scene,
yes,
economically and politically. We see stronger China, but you also have India as an emerging power in this, and of course Japan still being the third largest economy in the world. I think since we are in Europe, St. Petersburg is in Europe. Remember, Russia is a European country, yes, too. Maybe not a Western country, but a European country. Japan is not a European country, but many would say they have many Western aspects of it. But what the big question now being in Europe, St. Petersburg being built as the capital facing Europe by Tsar Peter the Great, is how will Europe act in this situation? If Europe works together, it's still the largest market in the world, 600 million people.
But will it? That's the issue, isn't it?
That's a big question. But if Europe is able to work together, I think Europe, to your question, can also play a positive role in being a bridge between the US, China, being a bridge between also the rest of the world and Russia. So we need people that wake up in the morning and collaborate and have that as the main aim. And you know, competition is okay. It is when it becomes it turns into something negative, hostile. Then it's negative. You know, I believe in competition when it comes to in the sports field. I think it's good that companies also compete. Nothing wrong about that.
That's in their genes.
Yeah, it needs to be level playing fields. It needs to be the same conditions.
Yeah. Final question before we go, Mr. President. People have been asking about technologies. I know World Economic Forum has been trying to come up with discussions about setting the right standards, having people to brainstorm about what kind of system that everybody could subscribe to, and also how to work out this competition vis-a-vis cooperation issue. But it is very difficult, and the drawing of the rules is such a long period of time that it is not catching up with the real development of technologies. So, Mr. President, how do you see this is further complicating the already complicated geopolitical issues? Do we have a solution on the horizon from your perspective?
So what the World Economic Forum has tried to do is to set up these centers around the world for the fourth industrial revolution, and said we cannot have a Wild West here. We need to also have traffic rules. And the good thing is that every place in the world, people know the difference between a red light, yellow light, and a green light.
Yes.
And I totally agree, for example, when it comes to artificial intelligence. It can be used in such a good way, it can solve challenges. But putting, for example, artificial intelligence into children's toys, are there limits? Should we agree on making sure that all these new technologies work in the interest of humankind? And I think there is a long way there. And for the World Economic Forum, we have ambitions to try to get the right people sitting down and at least agree on some rules of the game.
Well, that's already difficult and challenging enough. But for now, thank you so much, Mr. President, for joining us at the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum. Looking forward to Summer Davos in Dalian.
I'm so much looking forward to Dalian in the beginning of July.
It takes two to grow, to glow, to tango. China and Russia friendship, essentially a partnership. World Insight takes you closer to both the 2019 St. Petersburg International Economic Forum and Sino-Russian relations.
Welcome back. You're still watching a special edition of World Insight. I'm Tian Wei. The program coming to you live from St. Petersburg International Economic Forum. The new strategic partnership for China and Russia has benefits for the world and certainly for these two economies. In fact, with closer relations between China and Russia, China's SOEs are at the forefront of cooperation with their Russian counterparts. An example, the Poly Group. It has been engaging in cooperation deals and cultural businesses with Russian counterparts over the years, as it also transforms itself to serve the market needs better. Earlier, I sat down with Xu Niansha, chairman of the Poly Group, and he shared his fascination about international collaborations, including with Russia, and his fascination and determination with his colleagues to bring the best of cultures of two countries to each other. Take a look. How big really is the Russian market? If you think about it, it's not necessarily a huge population. However, of course, it's a market to be tapped into and has potential.
Okay, the Russia is a big country, and I think so. The policy changed already. So my feeling is more easy to do the business and communicate with our partners.
Really? What
yes.
is the secret of success to communicate with your Russian partners?
You can see the two leaders yesterday. They give the very positive and give us very exciting speech. So we can see we can saw the two countries the relationship. So have a different levels.
Yes. So strategic. Partners of coordination in the new era.
Coordinations, not only my feelings, also our Russian friends, our partners, some of the officers, some of the businessmen give me they're the comments like me.
So there are common, in a way, recognition between China and the Russian counterparts.
And they have more the enthusiasm try to do the business with the Chinese.
The Poly Group, over the decades, have been making very historical choices when it comes to the kind of industries, and you've been working instrumentally to build the Poly Group and move it to the cultural industry as well. When the Poly, the beginning, we born because of the China, developing the modernization of the areas, including the defense equipment. It is the reason of the Poly. At the very beginning.
Yes, at the beginning. But now, the defense equipment, only less 2% of the whole business. Very small. But still we have to keep the kind of the business because we have still have the demanding, still have the needing by the government, by all the friends, and also the other countries, the governments. But it's very different. We have our principles. We want to keep the world, the peace. We're developing the business kind of according to people's demanding, like the real estate. The people, they want to have
a house,
yes. And apartment, whatever. So they want to change the condition of the livings. And also, you have the house, you have the enough food.
Right.
You want to enjoy the culture. So
and life, of course.
the life.
Well, Mr. Xu, we're in St. Petersburg. Of course, this city is well known for its cultures. For example, composers, artists. I'm sure you also have your favorite.
Of course. When I think about St. Petersburg, I remember like the Tchaikovsky and Shostakovich.
Composer, the most well-known composers in the world.
Leningrad. Hero the symphonies. How did you say that?
I think it's Symphony Number 7 by Shostakovich, which,
you
as you said, inspired a whole generation.
Yeah, during the World War II. So encourage people's the survival and also the fight
against
invaders from the German. You can check the story. So the culture business, we come back to the business. It is the culture business. So it's really the good stories, really the good the culture people they need, they want.
When it comes to cultural cooperation, China and Russia certainly can have a lot of work to do together.
Sure.
So how much are you looking and tapping into the Russian possibilities in that regard? This city, I mean, is a historical city to begin with, St. Petersburg.
It's not along the history of the city. Also, it's arts cities.
Right, arts and culture.
Yes, arts and cultures. You can see a lot of the arts works, but also the performance. So the ballet and the orchestras, too many.
So are you working on that actively with your Russian counterparts?
We have to cooperate with them together.
Yeah.
So every year we bring a lot of the Russian artists, the performance institute into China. So Chinese like the performance very much.
Absolutely. But you know, having said that though, cultural business, whether it is going to support the overall business of the Poly Group for the future, it's a big question mark for any company, I guess, even though many people identify it as the direction to go. So what do you make of this, you know, reality vis-a-vis aspiration?
You know, the culture business is not profitable business. For the Poly, we want to supply the kind of the products. So for the cultural products to the peoples, for the Chinese people and also for the US peoples, Americans, Russians, the whole world. It is the missions.
Mr. Xu, you've been telling me earlier in an interview that it's also one of your missions to promote cultural exchanges. You earlier talked about even promote cultural exchanges between China and the United States, which is something you've been doing consistently over years. But you know, looking at the current situation, can you do more? What can be done?
I have the confidence. I have the belief. So I think so the humankind, the history is getting better and getting the progress. I hope so everybody should contribute their the ability to the humans the peace.
With that, we are coming to the end of this special edition of World Insight with me, Tian Wei, coming to you from St. Petersburg. If you'd like to see more, try to find us, World Insight CGTN, into your search engine or check out our YouTube channel. Also follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Sina Weibo. From me, Tian Wei, and my team, both here in St. Petersburg and Beijing, thanks for watching, and tune in again next time for insights across China and across the world. Good night.